So tell us about this FOIA.
FOIA stands for Freedom of Information Act. That's any citizen can request it from any government agency. The purpose of the FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, is precisely what that is. It allows us citizens to check that the county, is doing, or any, it could be Department of Homeland Security, it doesn't matter what it is, to check and see that they're being operating in an honorable way, doing their job, basically. It's the old, government transparency. And so we started scratching our heads and wondering, could this be a result of the David Beam issue with DEQ? That's what we thought. It was so egregious, and they weren't like, oh, all you need is this, and we'll come back in a week and we'll check on it, and that's it. There was never, we want you to do this, and this, and that's it.
Yeah.
And we'll do it. And so we started researching some of their requests and interpretations. Again, I told you the previous owner happens to be an attorney. Mm-hmm. And so she was appalled, at the process. And so we started ordering the FOIAs, and we ordered one of the FOIAs, the Freedom of Information Act. We wanted to check and see that the very first letter of violation I got, which is the only letter of violation I've gotten back in January 16th, said that they were observing county-wide floodplains, because of the unprecedented amount of rain in 2018. And we thought, yeah, okay, good, that's good. We want the county to do that.
So
right?
how many?
And so what we did was we ordered a Freedom of Information Act, and we said, how many, send us all the letters of violation, letters of inquiry, visits, etc., that you sent out as a result of that county-wide floodplain. I mean, we're talking 2 rivers, both sides of the river. We're talking thousands of properties, right?
Right.
0. None.
Just
mine. Just mine. How could that be when I can go 100 yards that way or 100 yards that way and find a ramp? How could that be? I mean, it's just, so right there, we really took pause. Mm-hmm. I mean, first of all, I was amazed because I didn't think that they would do that.
Right.
But they did, and that's just the bottom line. And at that point is when I started to retract. Meaning what I mean by that is I asked more questions. Because when you find one lie,
then you start digging.
You have to.
You have to start digging, and then you find out that there's a lot more going on.
You have to. And this is just getting started.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not ending. This is just getting started. No question about it.
Right.
And so there's more, lots more. We the BZA, this is a step that I have to go through, but honestly, it doesn't even belong at the BZA.
Right.
It belongs in a higher court, much higher court. And we'll get there, but we have to go through this step.
Yeah.
And it costs me money. But
it's a long process.
It's a long process.
Going to battering ram your way through.
That's correct. I have to. But there's other bits and pieces of information, like the main one. There's so many. One is, how did you see the ramp? And,
Do you think people were trespassing on your property?
You know what?
It's a good question.
It's a good question. I know this, unless you have X-ray vision. I mean,
you can't
take
see
a look, Mac. Take a look. You can't see the ramp from here.
I was standing 10 feet from it, and I couldn't see it.
Right.
Exactly.
From there, you're definitely not going to see it.
So unless they SWAT team style came in on the canoe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did, when I talked to Joe Petty, when I got the letter, I did call him and I did ask on the telephone, how did Matt Wendling see the ramp? Mm-hmm. Was he on a boat in the Shenandoah River? I literally asked him that, and he chuckled. No, he must have seen it from the right of way.
But you can't.
The right of way is Stony Bottom.
Yeah.
Okay, obviously you're not going to see anything from there. you can't even. I mean, you just can't see it with
Let's turn the
binoculars.
camera around and just,
Yeah.
we're sitting at your building, so
Yeah.
we'll turn the camera around and we'll see where, way up there where that building is, it's still another,
It's 1,500 feet.
past that building is another, at
From
least
there to-
100 or 2 feet to the road.
Yeah, from there to here.
Yeah.
1,550 feet.
Yeah. Well, we got the camera pointed this direction. Cassandra, you mentioned something about your hut here being a problem. Come on over here and tell me a little bit about this particular.
okay.
This,
So you see the hoop house,
Yes.
and you see that it's vented all the way along the bottom.
sides.
Both sides. And they said that we needed flood vents in the hoop house.
it's open steel mesh.
Exactly. So how is that reasonable?
And I want to emphasize, Cassandra, that was the actual FEMA
Yeah.
officer
That told you that?
that was here. So
who happened
Again-
to be in the area to do a site visit.
yeah, and look, he was in the area, and that's fine. But the main thing is, we were like, "Are you serious?" Like, I mean, are you serious? Like, and that's when I knew right away that this was a game. I mean,
Yeah.
I knew right away, and I was just an unwilling participant.
They were just trying to get you.
They were trying to
on
get me.
something. I mean, flood vents in a hoop house.
I mean,
look at that.
I mean, if these flood vents right here, these flood vents are adequate for this building.
No, these are the flood vents.
No, over here.
No,
No.
over there, Mac. See,
Over here?
this one, look, Mac, you can see it there. See that?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So this one requires 2, and this one requires 3 because it's a bigger size.
Okay.
So that mesh is 4 feet tall by 48 feet long on both sides. Okay. The hoop house is anchored in concrete, just like everything here is
Yeah.
anchored in concrete. How on earth? I mean, seriously, how? I mean, this
is kind of ridiculous.
This is what I've been involved with, and this is from the FEMA officer. I mean, I'm thinking, okay, counties doesn't understand, but certainly,
even assigned to this
certainly
area.
someone from the federal emergency management association that deals with floodplains all the time is going to say that's fine. So he said that when those windows are down, that the water will not be able to go in the building and exit the building. And I it's something that I just can't believe. Like, how on earth is those windows going to prevent? They're not
Water from
attached to
going through-
anything.
No, they're not.
They just
Plastic.
Yeah.
they're plastic,
And they're not anchored down when they're closed, so they can flap open. So anything
you can't
can
keep
pass
water out
through.
of the building.
No.
Even if you tried, which I would love to try, because I hate water going in there.
Yeah.
But you can't keep water
No.
in there, and you can't keep water in or out. It just does whatever it wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I was like, that right there, that particular requirement, as far as I'm concerned, was where, for me, it took an entirely new turn. It was so egregious and so ridiculous that I knew right away that something was seriously the matter.
Yeah.
And that's when I started ordering the Freedom of Information.
Something wrong in River City?
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about where do we go next? We know you have this BZA thing on the
September
September
5th. Yeah. So and I want to let everyone know that is potentially wants to build something in a floodplain or is a farmer and has something in a floodplain, that this is important because we have something in Virginia, and every state in the country has it. It's called the Right to Farm Act. And the Right to Farm Act enables people that are in agricultural pursuits, like myself, to run their farm as needed. So you need a house for someone that works here. Let's say I hired you, I could build you a little house right there, and and they can't say anything because
It's required.
I need it to run the farm. If I want to store my tractor, if I want to build a pole barn for hay, farmers should just be able to do that. It's absurd for having to go through these processes, and that's what the Right to Farm Act protects farmers from. Local government
Harassment.
making ridiculous requirements of farmers. when it's obvious that it doesn't apply.
Yeah.
Like you can't build, for instance, my point, guys, is that you're going to put up a pole barn to store hay. It shouldn't be built to a residential standards, following the Virginia statewide building code, which specifically has an exemptions clause for precisely that. It's all from the Right to Farm Act. It says right away, except for farm structures, blah, 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 you have to follow this. So, of course, think about that. You're gonna build a barn with an egress window, and for your hay or for your mule or what,
Yeah.
it's just so absurd, and it makes total sense.
Yeah.
And we have something. So
where are you going next with this?
So next is the hearing on the 5th of September, and the previous hearing, it was determined that the county does not have a process or a form, because where we stand right now is they want me to fill out the residential building permit application. So I went from not needing anything to having to install flood vents, which have already been done, to now I need to build my buildings to residential standards and following the Virginia Uniform. Again, this is so egregious. It contradicts the Virginia Right to Farm Act in such a manner, and it doesn't even make sense for me to have to build these things. And we tried to tell them this, but
They had no idea what to do in the hearing.
So in the hearing, they didn't rule. The BZA was they didn't rule on what, or to give me a process. So they didn't say anything. Just like the county hasn't said anything with endless visits about exactly what I need to do, other than the flood vents, which I did, and that should be
Along with your two 10-foot doors, you have a 24-inch flood.
I have
Yes.
three 12-foot doors in that building alone, but it's okay. I wanted to comply, and so I installed the flood vents. I put holes in my buildings, and so be it. Obviously, I can't do that there because there's no place to put them, and I mean, it's just counterintuitive. I can't do it. It would I would tear the building down. I mean, it just, I mean, right?
Right.
I mean, it just speaks for itself.
It's obvious it's a temporary structure, because that's why you put plastic on it.
It's obvious that it
And
poses.
it's obviously not a residential structure.
Correct.
We're not renting out to tenants here.
Right.
No.
It's obvious that they've never argued sometimes they have, sometimes they don't, the agricultural pursuits, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I don't know what, they go back and forth quite a bit on just about everything, but it's obvious that structure right there is for agricultural pursuits, and it's also obvious that water will go in and out as needed. And that's where I have to stop right there. I mean, I can't keep talking about that.
You can see from the hearing, the previous hearing, that how the BZA members were speaking. No one had any idea how to resolve this or what to do. I mean, it showed complete disengagement from each other. No one has a process. No one has a way. No one's thinking outside of the box. Everyone is stuck in a box. They're not thinking, and they decided to table it. So now what? Do they all get together and try to figure out where do we go?
Yeah.
And that's what we have to.
So that's where we're at. So the BZA is going to go.
The September 5th meeting is not the end for you.
No.
You're take it all the way to the Virginia Supreme Court if needed.
I mean, I have no idea where I'm going, Mike. But
you draw the line in the sand, and you're going to.
Well, I have everything vested here.
Sure.
I'm not a rich man. I can't. I mean, to make this happen, this is expensive.
Sure.
What I've done here.
We have to see what they come back with on the 5th. And again, when we go to build a home, we don't want to be dealing with the same people who have created this chaos.
Or when I'm trying to run the operation
Right.
here, I can't. Obviously, the trust, for obvious reasons, has been broken.
So
We
one
don't
step
have a
at
good
time.
working relationship. So, you know, they're not linear in their approach. They're not nice. They're not
They're not business friendly?
No.
business friendly. Oh
They
my
say they're very
gosh,
business friendly.
business friendly? No,
No.
they're not friendly. Period. I've never experienced friendliness. I mean, honestly,
It's just been accusations.
I will retract that statement. Ken Tamkin, okay, which was the building official that came down here that helped DEQ with their investigation. When he came down here, we sat right where we're at right here, and he looked around and he said, everything is fine here. This is the county building official, works under David Beam. This is fine here. Come get your land disturbance permit. And I told him, I will go that day. And I was driving to the government center when I got a phone call on my truck. He said, Nelson, don't come in. There's confusion with my boss. And that stopped me from obtaining the land disturbance permit that day.
Has David Beam ever been here?
Oh, yeah.
So I just want to say for the record that although I'm dealing with the heads now, there are a few guys underneath those guys that I don't want to include. You know, wherever this goes forward, they will always be on the good side. You know, if I'm, you know, on the
They tried to do the
on the help the, you know, they understood that they're here to help me,
right.
and he did. He was logical about it, and he said, just promise me those trees down by the river aren't going to be turned down. I said, of course not. That's erosion control. And he said, great, just everything is fine here. Just come get your land disturbance permit. So he was reasonable and rational, and how I would expect, you know, a county official to, you know, to talk to me. You know, I mean, he was friendly, and I was like, okay, cool. So I'm going to go get my land disturbance permit, pay the fees, etc. And that's when the whole erosion and settlement control plan aforementioned came into, you know, but again, it looked like this.
It was already done.
It was
Yes.
done, and grass was established and everything. So it's like, and DEQ had already said, we're good to go.
Yeah.
But again, you know, it's David Beam just, you know, so, you know, that's already been said. So,
Yeah.
so on the 5th, we're going to go, and what they're supposed to do is they're going to go back and create a form and
Well, we don't know what they're
and a
gonna do.
process. Well, they said they didn't have a form or a process for this, so they want to be clear on what a person that's doing what I'm doing, what's the process, since they haven't been able to tell me in 7-8 months what the, you know, exactly what it is. Sometimes they say this, sometimes they say that, then they retract that, then they re-add it, you know. So it makes me hesitant because it's thousands of dollars
Yeah.
in their in the
And
back,
it's all on
Well,
paper for them.
all on
You know, I
paper.
was
just-
going to add something like he was saying earlier. So you can go into this with all the good intent. Coming out here to have a nursery, to farm. What if somebody got sick and you couldn't farm? What do they, you know, are they going to come after you all of a sudden because something has derailed your dream? And again, what if we had to move and somebody bought this, like he said? I just want to reiterate that. Those are things that are concerns going forward. It doesn't just, no matter what gets resolved here, this is still going forward and affecting other people going forward.
Yeah.
So this has to be a system-wide overhaul. It can't be a one and done. You know, and they have...
It'll set, I was telling Mac, it'll set precedents.
Right.
And so...
But they need to think about all of these things. People get stuck in a box and they're not looking at bigger pictures. They're not thinking outside of where they are.
because
They're
they want to be
thinking
right.
small, and we need to, you know...
No, I you know, I believe that's partially the problem, and I also believe that they know darn well what they're doing, and, you know, they dug themselves in, you know, with the requirements, and when I started pushing back and asking why, and asking them, where does the law say that, they dug themselves, they never acknowledged my position. They just steamrolled. They never acknowledged the Right to Farm Act. They never acknowledged, I mean, they've been here 6, 7, 8, 9 times, federal, state, county. Not one person, BZA has said your buildings are unsafe.
Yeah. Except for David Beam.
No, David Beam has not said my buildings
Oh,
are
really?
unsafe. No one has said my buildings are unsafe. You can't ask anyone to do anything until first you state why.
What's wrong?
Well,
Oh, okay.
Nelson, I have a problem with this wall. It's not anchored properly, or, this, that, and the other. No one has said, which this is unsafe. The deck is anchored by 9 pillars of concrete.
This is
It's
about
overbuilt.
a piece of paper and a process.
This is
Yeah.
about retaliation because nothing makes sense other than the retaliation, and now we have the proof. But, so it's absurd, guys. And, it stopped being funny. This is a game. I'm an unwilling participant. But it stopped being funny when I started writing the checks to the attorneys.
Right.
And so now I have to see it through. That's just the way it is.
Well, we'll follow this through. We'll be there at the September 5th meeting, and we'll talk to you again, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And we'll follow up with it and see where it goes, and try to keep the public informed, and see if anyone from the public might have a similar case, and chime in here, and maybe we can get this resolved. 'Cause like you said, it's supposed to be for county-wide or statewide. If it's a universal problem, then we need a process for it.
Agreed.
And you look at it and say, can I be the only one? Which,
Do you put this story out before the September 5th hearing, so if people do, they can come forward?
We'll have it up next week.
Okay.
No, I'm assuming that there'll be, bits and pieces to it as you guys sit down. You can't just write one long story, I'm assuming. This is so complicated. Probably want to parse it out a few times.
Well, we'll see how that goes. Well, we really appreciate you talking
Sure,
to us. You've got a beautiful lot out here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think give us 5 years from now, you'll have your beautiful home built.
Yeah.
You'll have trees growing all
Right.
over the place.
And
you'll have your bees flying around.
And it'll be good for Warren
It'll be
County,
good for
right?
Warren
I mean,
County.
Yeah, it will.
law-abiding citizens, it's, if we're menaces to Warren County, if this is a menace, if this is not an example of people that are doing something right, I want to see what that looks like.
Right.
That's all.
How
Oh,
can
we
they not
think-
want a nurse and a farmer?
I think
right,
you're doing
exactly.
just fine here. I think this place is going to turn out to be a really gorgeous
I
farm.
appreciate it, Mac. Not very many people have given me compliments as far as the county. The neighbors all like it,
Except for one.
Yeah.
except for one. But they all come down by the river and say, "Oh my gosh, this is beautiful," and things like that. So,
Yeah.
but county and everybody else is just,
Yeah.
Although one member of the BZA was very, and I want to mention that there is one member of the BZA that did side with us in terms of the process it's mucked up.
Yeah.
This isn't right. So,
Thanks again.
okay,
Thank you.
Good.